Hello YouTube and welcome to the 100 subscriber special of 10th Scale Garage. We made it, 100 subs. That's pretty cool. So I figured to mark this special occasion, I'd give you a tour of the 10th Scale Garage. In this video, we're going to take a look at all of my RC ground vehicles. Just the ground vehicles. I've got some boats and drones. Boats and drones. I've got some boats and drones, but I'm going to leave those out today because we'd be here all day. So grab a beverage, sit back, relax, and I'm going to show you all the trouble that I get into. And then you can write down in the comments, that I have a problem. And then if you want to, organize an intervention, that's probably not a bad idea. Yeah, I might have a little bit of a problem. So let's get started. I'm just going to go over all of them kind of briefly and just show you what I've got. And then if there's anything that you want to know more about, leave a comment down below and I'll answer any questions. And if there's any vehicle you see that you want to see a video on, let me know. Okay, let's get started. Let's start out with buggies. My first RC was a Losi XX Buggy. I think I was maybe like 12, 13 years old at the time. And I was always into RC cars, but that was the first real one I had, the first real hobby grade RC that I got. I got it secondhand from the local hobby shop, spent all the money that I could beg, borrow, and steal, and got that thing, and I had an absolute blast with it. Anyway, this is my Arrma Typhon 8th scale buggy. It is broken. The last video that I shot with this, where I was bombing it around in the snow, I ended up getting a little squirrely in a corner, caught the back wheel on the side of a wooden step, and it just, this A-arm just exploded. It just shattered. It didn't stand a chance. It was like maybe 30 degrees out there, so it's definitely my favorite buggy that I own. I did a whole video on this, on why the cheaper Arrma vehicles are better, in my opinion, than the more expensive Arrma vehicles. This thing is pretty bulletproof. Arrma Typhon 3S, brushless, sick. Next up is my ECX Boost. I got this thing for dirt cheap on eBay, and it was missing some electronics, and I thought, that's fine, I'm gonna put my own electronics in it anyway. So I converted this thing with a Dynamite Taser 3S brushless system, Dynamite motor and ESC. I put, it didn't have any shocks on it when I bought it, so I put the ECX shocks back on it because these shocks are actually pretty good for what they are. This thing performs really well with them. I put these J-Concept wheels and tires on it. I put this wing on it. I actually did a video on this where I compared a couple of cheap or inexpensive ECX RC cars, and it was my first time ever running this thing, and it did really well. This thing is a ripper. I've only driven it, I think, twice, but I really should drive it more because it was a really fun build, and this thing performs better than it has any business to. I'll put a link to that video where I take this thing out for a quick burn somewhere on the doodle. This was a purchase that I made on eBay late one night after I had a few adult beverages, and it's actually my first ever nitro car. This thing started life as a Redcat Tornado S30, and the guy that originally built this went crazy on it, absolutely crazy. So it's got a lot of aftermarket parts on it, a lot of team associated stuff. It's got carbon fiber shock towers, it's got an aftermarket pipe on it, it's got really beefed up transmission in it. It's got really, really nice suspension front and back. It's got these really cool J-Concepts wheels and tires on it. And this thing is an absolute screamer. The motor and setup and everything is really, really high strung. You really got to dial it in and get the tune just right. But when you do, this thing absolutely screams. It sounds like a little Formula One car. But nitro buggies are super cool. This dirty girl is a Traxxas Fortec 2.0. As I mentioned earlier, my first hobby grade RC car was a Losi XX Buggy, and my second hobby grade RC car was a Traxxas Fortec, the original one, 4-wheel drive. That thing was so fast when I was 15 years old. It did not get any better than that. So when Traxxas re-released the Fortec 2.0, I was like, gotta get it. Pure nostalgia. And this thing with the Ford Mustang body on it is really, really neat. Put a hobby wing system in it, and this thing is good to go. It just needs a dusting because, yeah, we went hard that day. I'll put a link to that video up here somewhere. This car is a Redcat Thunder Drift. It's got this really neat Evo 10 body on it that I got from Killer Bodies. So it's a pretty hard body. It's got a full light kit in it. It does crazy effects. You can flip a switch and put this in party mode and the lights go crazy like Fast and the Furious circa 2002. It's super fun. It's got underbodies on it because, hey, why not? It's got this gnarly carbon fiber wing, and of course it's got drift tires on it. This thing is a 4-wheel drive, belt-driven car. I put a hobby wing brushless system in it, as I often do. This has a 60 amp quick run ESC in it. It's got aftermarket gears. I locked the diff. It's got a different strut tower brace. It's got aftermarket servo. It's got magnetic body mounts for it. This is by far and away the best drift car that I've ever owned. This is a Redcat Lightning nitro car. So yep, it's got a nitro motor, and I took this thing drifting with the last 2 cars in the warehouse with Ethan. I've never driven a nitro car on drift tires. That was something new to me, and it was a lot of fun. I got this body for less than $20 on Amazon, and I did a little bit of work to it. It's got LEDs inside of it, because why not? A nitro car with LEDs inside of it? Pretty awesome. The last time that we drove it, Ethan yanked the pull cord right out of it. That's a newbie nitro mistake. I really like crawling. And this was the first crawler that I ever got. This is a Redcat Everest 10, or at least that's how it started life. There's not a whole lot of Everest 10 left on it. The axles, the links, the transmission, and that's it. So this has got different wheels and tires. It's got this Integy cage on it to kind of make it look like a rock bouncer. Hobby Wing 1080 speed controller. It's got 4-wheel steer. It's got an Arma 12-turn motor in it, so this thing can get up and scoot. This thing has got just an insane amount of flex. You can about twist the chassis in half. The axle housing is still plastic, but my experience is plastic slides over rocks a heck of a lot easier than metal, so I've put a lot of work into this thing, and there aren't a whole lot of Everest 10s out there like this, so I'm kind of proud of it. Yeah. This was a Redcat Gen 7 Pro that I ruined, but it looks really cool. This thing, stock out of the box, is a great crawler, a great trail truck. The first thing I did was put on this hard body that is really, really, really heavy. I put this metal roof rack on it and a tire, so there's just way too much weight way up high on this thing. It's got a bunch of other various stuff. All the details on this are in that video that no one wants to watch. But really cool looking truck. I mean, really, really cool looking truck. I love this thing. It's got a full light kit in it, but you know, just making scale videos out on the trail, it's really fun. This is my Vetera Ascender, and oh my gosh, where do I begin with this thing? It looks so cool. That's why I bought it. I bought it just because it looked awesome. This Chevy Suburban body is so sweet. It's got working lights in it. I put these RC 4-wheel drive mudslingers on it, which is, in my opinion, just about the best crawler tire that you can get. But this thing is a performer. It's really, really light. It gets over stuff that way more expensive trucks can't even think about. Really cool. This is my Traxxas TRX4 Defender. I actually painted this body this really cool orange and black because I saw a real Defender in this color scheme, and I thought it was so cool. Then, about a week after I painted it like this, Traxxas actually released the Adventure Edition TRX4 in this same exact color scheme. So it's not an adventure series or whatever it's called, but it is really, really cool. And it's got the sticker saying it's dope, because you know it is. The ECX Torment. I originally bought this truck to do a build series called Project Winter Jam. I built this thing up, put a cheap brushless system in it to see how good it was. Spoiler alert, it died instantly. I put skis from T-Bone Racing on it, and I put some paddle tires on it. And I also ran this really cool Beetle body that I got for dirt cheap. I made this thing into a winter basher for like no money at all. But then the snow melted, and I thought, what if I just turn it back into a short course truck and rip it around? And that's exactly what I did. So this thing has all aftermarket electronics in it. It's got different wheels and tires. It's got different suspension on it. And again, I did a video where I compared this and the ECX Boost, and just to see how much fun you could have for almost no money at all in this hobby. And that video actually did pretty well. So if you haven't watched that and you want to check it out, you know what to do, up here. Arrma Sentin Mega. I got this on eBay secondhand for $100. The stock electronics in it were junk. I put a pretty inexpensive 3S brushless system in here, and it is a lot of fun. This thing performs really well. It's really, really durable. I've only run it a few times, but the couple times that I've run it, it's been a lot of fun. It looks cool, it goes like the clappers, and it didn't break the bank. I've got $180 in this thing. And this is from a time before Horizon Hobby owned Arrma, and they started sending those awful transmitters. This has the old Tactic transmitter in it. Beautiful. Team Redcat SC10E. I just bought this thing to celebrate 100 subs. I thought, what better way than to buy a new RC? So this is it. I haven't run this thing yet. I don't know anything about it other than Redcat is discontinuing them, and I got it for super cheap on Amazon. Less than $250. This thing has a Hobbywing 3S brushless system in it right from the factory. I'm not super crazy about this body, but, you know, Proline makes some pretty sweet bodies, so I'm excited to run this thing. Like I said, I haven't run it yet. Just got it today, and here it is, guys. So you will almost certainly see a video on this very, very soon. The 100-mile-an-hour Traxxas Rustler. That's right, you heard right. This Rustler doesn't go 100 mile an hour, but it will. My plan is to make this thing go 100 mile an hour for, you guessed it, the cheapest amount possible. So I've got a Ghoul RC 4S brushless system in it, and I've got gears from Robinson Racing. I've got these Duratrax Bandito tires on it, and in its current setup, it should be good for about 70, 75 mile an hour. However, I haven't even gone that fast because it's snowy outside, and when it's not snowing, it's raining, and I haven't had a good weather day to go out and give this thing a rip. When I got it up to 59 mile an hour, I think, I was barely even in it. This thing has a lot more to give, and I'm really excited to get it out there and see how fast it goes with its current setup, and then finally hit that goal of 100 mile an hour. So that'll be something to do this summer when we've got a little bit nicer weather. The Arrma Granite. I got this because my buddy Ethan got one, and he used that as a chassis for his old electronics from his old truck. So I got this one to kind of build it along with him, and that way when we went out, we would have basically the same truck. And this thing takes a beating. I recently made a video on this where it went nuts. I mean, this thing was jumping off of slides and hauling through mud and dirt and launching and crashing. I've never beaten a truck so hard in my life as what I beat this thing, and it had almost zero issues, and the video was absolutely incredible until I realized that I wasn't filming it and I did not capture any of the epicness on camera at all. And sadness covered me like a blanket. Hopefully someday soon, I'll take this thing out for round 2 and we will absolutely punish this thing. Arrma Kraton 4S. Broken. This thing is my all-time favorite basher, even though the A-arms are made of glass. I'm serious. What the heck, Arrma? When I got this thing, the first time I took it out, I broke this lower A-arm. First time, first jump, broken A-arm. Which is just so disappointing on a brand new truck because it was a game ender. I didn't have any spare parts for it. I ordered a new A-arm, put it on, and had an absolute blast with this thing. It's really fast, it handles really, really well, but if you hit anything with this A-arm, it's game over. It will break. It will break. I broke 2 of these A-arms in one day. So I've got some RPM arms on the way. So it's been sitting for about a week now. Like I said, parts are in the mail, they're on the way, and I'll get this thing back up and running. But when this thing runs, it is my favorite basher. Redcat Earthquake 3.5. This is a 1/8 scale nitro monster truck, and monster is the right name for it. This thing is absolutely crazy. I've done a little bit of work to this truck. It's got aftermarket suspension. It's got these Proline Masher huge wheels and tires on it that miraculously clear. I upgraded the hubs and shafts to 17 millimeter, and I've upgraded the throttle servo as well. So I need to order another receiver for this thing, and then this spring, this summer, I'm going to get this thing back out because I've only run it a handful of times, and it is an absolute maniac. My brother has a Traxxas T-Max, and this thing versus the T-Max is going to be so much fun. Shout out to Jeff C. He just got one of these, and I think that may have been a late night eBay purchase as well. But good on you, brother. You're going to love that thing. They're super cool. The Traxxas Fiesta ST Rally. This thing's been to the moon. It's been through the mud. It's been everywhere. It's been beaten and abused, and it loves it. I did smash the chassis. I cracked it in half. I've got a video about that if you want to check it out here. And in the crash, I was going so fast that the spoiler ripped off the car. I've still got it, but the spoiler just completely ejected itself from the body, and it's got 4 screws holding it in. So that's how hard I hit. Other than that, this thing has been pretty much perfect. My very dirty Traxxas UDR. This is one of my favorite RCs. It was pretty expensive, and it took me a while to be able to afford it, but I finally bit the bullet and bought one, and oh my gosh, is this thing fun to drive. This is definitely one of my favorite RCs to drive. It's really, really realistic in the way that it handles. It requires a little bit of skill to get it right, so it's challenging, and the way that this thing moves across ground is just really cool to watch and really cool to drive. We recently made a video where we drove this thing and the Fiesta ST Rally. The video link is right up here. To be honest, I can't remember who makes this 1/18 scale drift car, but it's really neat. I know that they don't make it anymore, and finding parts for this thing is just about impossible. So this thing stays a little bit of a shelf queen, but I have run it many, many, many times. I painted this Toyota Supra body on it. I was kind of going for the Fast and Furious Toyota Supra theme, as you can tell. But it comes from the factory with a brushless system in it. So this little thing rips. It looks really cool sitting on my shelf where it spends most of its time just because I don't want to break it. It's really cool. I don't want to break it because I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get parts for it. On rainy days, drifting this thing around the kitchen, the dogs hate it. The cats are scared of it. It's a good time. The WL Toys 12428. I know that everyone that gets these seems to really like them. They're supposed to be really, really durable. That has not been my experience. I got this thing and I put this carbon fiber wrap on it, and it has ARMA stickers on it because it had all ARMA electronics inside of it. And then I got these oil-filled shocks for it, cheap online, and then they immediately let all the oil out of them, and so now they're just springy. It's got these Pro Line paddle tires on it, and when this thing ran, I took it out in the snow, and it was awesome. But then it died. I put new electronics in it, and it torched them pretty much immediately. So it's back to the stock electronics in it right now. I drove it on the stock electronics one time, and it torched it again. So I think there's a problem with the motor, and I haven't really found the motivation to pick it up and get it fixed again. But when it ran, briefly, it was really cool. The tank! The Ripsaw tank. This thing was actually a pretty popular video, which kind of surprised me because it's kind of an obscure, weird thing. It's kind of on the borderline of being toy grade, but it's still super fun. I really like this thing. I haven't driven it since I made the video on it, but I plan to. I plan on taking this thing out and letting some other people drive it because it is a really cool driving experience. I mean, it's a tank! Come on! The Axial Yeti Junior Can-Am Maverick. I made a video on this thing recently. It actually did pretty well, so I'm glad you guys like it. You should. So look at this thing compared to my Ascender here. They call this one 18th scale and they call this one 10th scale, but if you look at them side by side, I'd say that's a pretty good scale. I mean, if this thing, obviously this thing has gigungous tires on it, but you know, if this was a real Suburban, you would expect a Can-Am to be about that size, right? Anyway, super fun, totally stock, perfect just the way it is. ECX Ruckus. I bought this thing on eBay when I was drunk. I've never driven it. Redcat Shredder. This thing is a shredder. The only thing that I've done to it is put these enormous Durtrax Hatchet MT tires on it. Putting these bigger wheels on it destroyed the center diff, so I rebuilt the diff to be a lot stronger, changed the steering servo, and I run it on a Spectrum system. Other than that, it's stock, and it is so choice. It's a clawback. Shout out to OMGRC and Jeff C, my homies. This is my clawback, just made a video on it. What can I say? It's a 5th scale crawler with 4-wheel steer. What's not to love? This is my Redcat Rampage XR Rally 2-stroke 4-wheel drive rally car. This is pretty new to the collection. I did a couple videos on it, and it was probably one of the most fun videos I've ever made. This thing ripping around in the snow and gravel was too cool. I've got some plans to do some pretty fun stuff with this thing this summer. So right now, I'm waiting on a few parts for it, a few upgrade parts for it, and I'm gonna get those fitted, and then it's gonna be ready to go as soon as we get some nice weather. The Rovin 5B. What can I say? This thing does 2 things and 2 things only. Makes really loud brappy noises and destroys all terrain. This was my first gas RC, my favorite 2-stroke. It's a beast, it's a wild animal, it gives 0 cares, and I love it. I've got a couple videos on this thing. Neither one of them did very well, which I don't get because this thing is just so cool. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it makes rooster tails with these paddle tires. Ugh. And there you have it, guys. That is all of my ground vehicles. So thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time checking out the channel, welcome. I'm glad you found it. If you are an OG subscriber, hit that like button. I appreciate all of you. Here's to 100 more, guys. Until next time, we'll see you later. And seriously, you might want to start planning an intervention. This is kind of ridiculous.